For our final talk of this session, we have Kian Ismaili from University of North Georgia. If you want to make, so he's recording this presentation. The camera is trained only on him, but if you were to ask a question you don't want to be recorded, please let him know before you ask your question. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kian Ismaili, and I'm from University of North Georgia, and today I'm presenting my research on AI-driven update validation in endpoint security. This research was conducted with Dr. Ahmad Afardan. Now I have a question for you. What if the next global cyber incident doesn't actually start with a phishing email and it starts with a trusted security update or with a poorly validated machine learning model? In July 2024, an update from CrowdStrike Falcon triggered the blue screen of death across critical industries, which revealed a deeper problem. Modern endpoint security systems focus heavily on detecting attacks, but not enough on validating their own updates or the machine learning models behind them. Prior research has also shown that commercial ML-based endpoint systems can be evaded when they rely on weak or static features, which is why the field has shifted toward a behavior-based learning. My research explores how AI can be used not only to detect threats, but also to validate updates and prevent failures before they reach users. Ransomware remains one of the most damaging classes of malware affecting organizations today, and traditional signature-based detection cannot keep up. As a result, endpoint security platforms increasingly depend on machine learning and behavioral analysis. Now, while the shift improves detection, it also introduces new dependencies. Organizations now trust machine learning systems to make correct security decisions at a scale. Now, if those models are poorly trained, poorly validated, or deployed without sufficient safeguards, the impact can be extended far beyond a single endpoint. This research was structured around two primary objectives. The first objective is what I call the validation analysis. In this phase, I evaluated the limitations of current endpoint update mechanisms using the 2024 CrowdStrike incident as a real-world case study. That outage shows that even advanced AI-driven platforms can fail when internal update processes are not sufficiently validated. As a part of this analysis, I also examined the AI for Falcon framework as a preventative concept, not as a core of my research, but as an example of how AI-driven validation could be applied before updates are deployed at a scale. The second objective is the detection experiment. Here I developed a custom machine learning pipeline using high-fidelity SysMon telemetry. This involved building an isolated virtual environment, collecting benign and malicious logs, pre-processing the data, and training a random forest classifier to distinguish between normal activity from ransomware behavior. The goal was not only to detect ransomware, but to also quantify the gap between a small-scale academic model and an enterprise-grade security systems. Together, these two objectives support a broader insight, which is endpoint security must evolve beyond simply just detecting external threats and begin validating its own internal processes, including software updates and machine learning pipelines. In this slide, I summarize the full architecture of my ransomware detection pipeline. I designed the system as four main phases. First, I used two isolated Windows virtual machines. One VM acted as a sandbox, where I generated benign activity and executed ransomware samples, and the second VM is dedicated to pre-processing and machine learning analysis, which prevents contamination. Second, I collected high-fidelity telemetry using Microsoft SysMon. SysMon captures process creation, file writes, network connections, and parent-child relationships. Third, pre-processing is handled by a custom Python script. It cleans corrupted entries, extracts features and file hashes, and applies a smoke to address the class imbalance. And finally, I trained and evaluated a random forest classifier using research CV. Performance is measured using precision, recall, F1 score rather than just accuracy alone. The pipeline allows me to both evaluate the strengths and the limitations of a small-scale ML-based ransomware defense or detection. This slide captures one of the most important lessons from this research. When the model was first trained, it reported nearly 100% accuracy. At first glance, this looked like an excellent result. However, when I took a closer look at the confusion matrix, it revealed something alarming. The model was classifying every event as benign. This happened because the data set was heavily imbalanced with far more benign events than ransomware events. So the model trained was learned to always predict the majority class. As a result, the model appeared perfect while completely failing to detect a single ransomware instance. After introducing additional ransomware samples and applying the SMOT for dataset balancing, the overall accuracy dropped to 77%, but precision, recall, and F1 score became non-zero, which means the model actually began detecting malicious behavior. The key takeaway here is high accuracy does not imply effective security. Meaningful detection is more important than perfect-looking numbers. This slide explains how sysmon logs are transformed into features that the machine learning model can actually learn from. All data collected is using two isolated Windows virtual machines. One VM acts as a sandbox to generate the activity, and the second VM is dedicated to pre-processing model analysis, which prevents contamination. Sysmon provides high-fidelity telemetry, including process creation, fallarized network connections, and parent-child process relationships, and during the pre-processing, a custom Python script extract behavioral features such as command line, image passes, event IDs, timestamps, and file hashes. Instead of relying on static signatures, the pipeline focused on behavioral indicators of ransomware, including obfuscated PowerShell usage, including abnormal parent-child chains, and bursts of far-right activity. Because benign events vastly outnumber malicious ones, a SMOT is applied to balance the overall dataset. This slide presents the final detection results and shows why accuracy alone could be misleading in cybersecurity. On the left, the model is trained on the original imbalanced dataset. Because most logs were benign, the model learned to always predict benign. This produced 100% accuracy, but the confusion matrix also confirms this. All events were classified as benign, and precision, recall, and F1 score for ransomware were all zeros. After balancing the dataset using SMOT and adding additional ransomware samples, the model was retrained. On the right, you can see again that the overall accuracy drops to 77%. However, the model gains the ability to detect ransomware behavior. Ransomware precision increases to 0.40 and recall to 0.29. This represents a shift from misleading performance to meaningful detection. In security, a model that occasionally makes mistakes but detects real attacks is far more valuable than a model that never detects anything. This summarizes the most important lesson from this research. First, accuracy alone is not a reliable metric in cybersecurity. A model can achieve near perfect accuracy while failing to detect the very threat it was designed to identify. Second, data quality and class distributions are foundational. Without proper balancing, even well-designed models can collapse into majority class bias. Third, high-fidelity telemetry like Sysmon is powerful, but collecting detailed logs alone does not guarantee meaningful detection. These observations point to a broader principle. Validation must exist at every development stage, including data collection, feature extraction, model training, and update deployment. Finally, this work highlights a gap between academic environment and enterprise scale reality. Endpoint security systems must be architected for resilience, incorporating continuous self-validation, failure prediction, and automated rollbacks. Ultimately, endpoint platforms must validate themselves, not just external threats. This slide connects my experimental finding with existing validation-oriented endpoint security research. On the left, we see the current landscape, and most prior ransomware researchers focus on behavioral detection. While behavior-based machine learning is important, it does not address the risk introduced by faulty updates. The July 2024 outage demonstrated that even advanced AI-driven platforms can fail catastrophically when internal validation mechanisms are insufficient. On the right is the AI for Falcon framework. AI for Falcon is built around the idea that security updates themselves should be treated as potentially dangerous inputs, rather than just assuming updates are safe. AI for Falcon analyzes the system behavior after updates, and it is applied inside a controlled environment. Endpoint telemetry such as process activity, file operations, memory users, kernel events, and system calls are converted into feature vectors. The machine learning model then distinguishes normal update behavior from abnormal behavior associated with crashes, instability, or degradation. If high risk is predicted, the update can be blocked, delayed, or routed to additional sandbox for testing. While AI for Falcon focuses on validating update behavior, my research shows that similar validation is also necessary inside ransomware detection pipelines, particularly for data quality, feature engineering, model training. Together, these results support a validation-first approach in security. Every research has limitations, and this work is no exception. First, the data size and malware diversity were limited, which constrains how broadly these results can be generalized. Second, experiments were conducted in an academic sandbox rather than a live enterprise environment. Third, the models were trained and evaluated offline and in a real streaming setting. These limitations motivated several future directions. This could be expanding the data set with additional malware families, exploring real-time detection using streaming logs, and investigating AI-driven validation of updated pipelines with continuous learning. This slide also moves the conversation beyond simple detection. On the left, I summarize 3 fundamental gaps in today's endpoint security systems. Updates are still largely trusted by default. Models can report high accuracy while not detecting anything, and high-quality endpoint telemetry is sparse and difficult to label. And on the right, I outline future directions again, which is AI-driven pre-deployment testing, predictive failure modeling, and synthetic telemetry generation. Together, these results support a shift toward validation-first endpoint security, where systems are continuously validating what they deploy and how they learn. I'll close with 3 takeaways. First, accuracy alone is not a reliable metric for security. A model can appear perfect while failing to detect actual attacks. Second, meaningful ransomware detection requires behavior-focused features, balanced data, and careful validation across the entire pipeline. Third, detection itself is not enough. Endpoint platforms must also validate their own updates and learning processes before deployment. Taken together, again, this work supports a shift toward validation-first endpoint security, where systems continuously validate what they deploy and how they learn. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.